It is an awful lot easier to do an autopsy and explain why something died than it is to explain why life or where life comes from in the first place. So, it should be easy to take apart what happened to the Golden State Warriors and why their season is over, but it's not. This is not an easy autopsy, but today we'll put our gloves on, we'll pull out the scalpel, we'll do the big Y incision, and we'll try to figure it out. Welcome to the Damon Bruce Show here on a Monday morning. It is really good to have you. Thank you for joining us, whether you're doing it live on YouTube, a little bit later today on YouTube, or going to download that podcast, and you're going to want to get that podcast, which is still exploding in popularity. Thank you all so very, very much. Where did it all go wrong for Golden State? Now, the easy thing to say, the easy thing to point at and look at is to say, well, it all started going wrong with Draymond Green and Jordan Poole and the punch that started the timeline of this year. And if you were just going back to this year's beginning point of where things went wrong, that's a very easy and obvious thing to point at and look at and say, well, that wasn't good. Tim Kawakami wrote so eloquently, that's when the glow of last June's championship was fully wiped away. Like, that's when the Warriors lost all their momentum and what seemed to be an unbreachable level of team chemistry that they had, all over the league. Other teams got along, but didn't necessarily love each other the way that the Golden State Warriors have throughout this dynasty. Well, that came to a screeching halt in that punch. But to me, after kind of thinking about it this weekend, we did a hell of a post-game show on Friday night. One of the most watched things I've done so far here on YouTube and on Twitch. Twitch, we love you too. Thank you so much for hanging out with us as well, if that's where you're doing it. After thinking about this weekend, the real derailment of a possible title this season, I think probably began with the championship that they actually won last season. Think about it. Gary Payton basically in that moment priced himself off the roster before he was able to rejoin the roster. Jordan Poole created like an illusion of value that may now not exist. And again, that punch probably got him paid as much as his potential did because the Warriors just didn't want that hanging over this entire year. The only suggestion of Jordan Poole's greatness that could, still be his one day. But boy, he was bad and at times unplayable in the postseason. He played every single game this year. He played every single game this year, every regular season game, every postseason game he played. That is commendable. Jordan Poole's choices are absolutely in question. His work ethic is not. So what happens to him this offseason? I know a lot of people are talking about how he might get traded, how Kuminga might get traded. We'll get to all of that when it comes time to get to all of that, but we're still trying to figure out what the hell just happened getting knocked out of the postseason. Again, Kuminga was expected to turn into a player that mattered, and his value decreased in Kerr's eyes when games mattered the most. He became a complete afterthought. James Wiseman, not that he did anything in the NBA Finals or the playoffs really for the Warriors at all last year because he was shut down, but, the illusion of his value, was in a weird way buoyed by a playoffs and a finals that he didn't even participate in. And I think that was the illusion that this two timeline thing could actually work out for the Warriors, and it clearly this year did not. Last year, the two timeline thing worked out because the second timeline of the youth movement was completely buried on the roster and didn't rear its head to make any mistakes. Hold on, I had the space heater underneath here cranking. I don't need that. We're nice and warm. We got a nice cup of coffee here this morning. Very nice. We were taking blackened whiskey bottle tugs on Friday. We needed them. We took a few more tugs this weekend. It was needed. Hope your Mother's Day all went well, by the way. Another reason why this season went off kilter for the Warriors, I think it's real simple. Last year's success and all the success made Steve Kerr like triple down on his stubbornness at times to not play kids in the name of I'm going to play Anthony Lamb and Ty Jerome instead of the further development of Moody. And look at all those regular season games you lost anyway. You know, you probably would have lost all of those regular season games and been that bad on the road had you actually played the kids and seasoned them to the point where, you know, they might have done something for you in the postseason instead of being absolute afterthoughts. So Kerr is, you know, not blameless, but the Steve Kerr's got to go, fire Steve Kerr, you can do better than him now crowd is just, that's insane. Let's be completely honest. I think the final piece of the autopsy of what the hell happened can be traced back to Andrew Wiggins pulling a 2-month vanishing act. And that was a big part of not only the fitting it all back together, which maybe took that King series to a 7th game. And that 7-game King series is a big reason why they lost game 1 against the Lakers. Had to burn way too much fuel to get past Sacramento. But Andrew Wiggins in that vanishing act served the Warriors poorly in terms of cohesion, which they were seeking all year. And it allowed this team to have to burn way too much fuel getting to the finish line before they could get to the starting line of the NBA's postseason. So there are a lot of reasons why the Warriors' season is over. And everyone wants to say that the Warriors are in charge of their own destiny. They're good enough to be in charge of their own destiny. That's not who they are anymore. It's not. That's not who the Golden State Warriors are anymore. They are not in charge of what happens to them. They are going to be, their success or failure will be determined by the quality of play around them in this league. They're not that much better than everyone that, you don't even have to consider the opponent. It's, if the Warriors play well, they win. If the Warriors play poorly, they lose. It used to be that world. The world has changed. First of all, the entire NBA has caught up with the Warriors stylistically and surpassed the Warriors in terms of athleticism. So those are two factors that went into this falling short. And let's be honest, they ran into the greatness of LeBron James. And the greatness of LeBron James was, able to be superior to the greatness of Steph Curry and company this time around. And Steph was great, but he didn't have any greatness come along with him the way that LeBron. And it's funny, LeBron, he had that foot problem. And everyone's saying, well, look at all these games that he's taken off since he broke the NBA's scoring record. I actually think that came back to benefit the Lakers greatly because it got that team, which was rebuilt at the trade deadline, playing well together and counting on each other and starting to trust each other. And that went a long way to them now being in the Western Conference Finals, which, by the way, begins tomorrow night. The NBA is dark tonight. No games tonight. Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals is Tuesday. Lakers at the Nuggets. And then on Wednesday, we begin the Eastern Conference Finals. We'll get into that in just a little bit. How great is LeBron James? And I know a lot of Warriors fans are tired of me, keeping on bringing it up. I keep on bringing it up because apparently there's a group of Warriors fans who just completely refuse to understand that LeBron James is the greatest basketball player this league has ever seen. And if you want to say, well, Michael Jordan never lost an NBA Finals, you know what Michael Jordan never did? He never won 41 postseason series, which LeBron has, which is the most in NBA history. The reason why Michael Jordan is still held in the highest of regards is, number one, he was a bad motherfucker, no doubt about it. But, he tapped out, and LeBron has just kept going. And he has accumulated a level of stats and success that, I think actually when you start measuring it all, unless you're just so wrapped up in rings culture, you only know how to count to 6. If you know how to count everything else that goes into an evaluation of a career, LeBron has got it. LeBron is spectacular, and he's not the LeBron he used to be, but boy, he still gets shit done. Want to thank all of you for being here today, and I got to tell you, we got a delivery this morning. I haven't had time to unpack it. I think it's a full-on cardboard cutout of Ike, which means not only are we going to have this spectacular graphic to show for you to encourage you to go get lunch today at Ike's, delicious sandwiches made any way you want them, variety out the yin-yang, extra Godfather sauce, always a great way to go. But we might actually have like a stand-up cardboard cutout thing of Ike's. It's the package that this got delivered in is like twice the size of Ike, but I think that's what it is. We have this gargantuan cardboard box here in our house now. I think it's Ike. So we're going to have at least a cute little Ike to like rub his chin and put like thought bubbles over his head, and like a little co-host will be standing here with me. And if you were watching last Friday, you saw Blackened Whiskey basically be a co-host when Gianna, I almost called her Lebrana, Gianna stomped on by. She was that great of a co-host. She was the Lebrana of co-hosts. But Gianna stopped on by on Friday. We had a lot of fun, and it was great hanging out with her. You cannot fake broadcasting love like that. And I got so much love for her, it's ridiculous. We're now living in a post-Warriors world here on the Plus, and we're going to get into a lot of stuff this week that is, not just talking about the Warriors and what the hell happened, because what happens next is going to be that conversation. Baseball season is officially about to be underway here on the Plus. We're going to start looking at the NFL with a greater lens than before, and we are going to expand things just beyond the Bay Area, because last time I checked, the internet was bigger than just any radio signal here in the Bay Area, and we are now fishing for sports fans of all types. So lots coming up this week. We got a lot of stuff to get into, but today really is a day to look back and say, what the hell just happened with the Warriors? And I think we've kind of laid out an awful lot of what the hell has happened. I know that there's a lot going on in the chat right now. I'm looking forward to getting to all of you when we get to Club Plus, but just a few more things on the Warriors. Tim Kawakami wrote a great article coming out of that loss to the Lakers where he basically said, the Warriors, they met defeat with defiance. We ain't done yet. It ain't time to break this up. And that's great, but roles absolutely need to be reexamined. And how the Warriors go about their business and how they treat the regular season, I think needs to be reexamined by the team, by the coach, and by the superstars themselves. The Warriors had so much postseason success, they lost the importance of any regular season, and regular seasons still do matter. And it's time for the regular season to matter to the Warriors again. They're not this, we'll see you in the finals, everybody. It's the Warriors Invitational. It's not that's not the world anymore. Their road performance this year this is not an exaggeration. It was pathetic. The Warriors were pathetic on the road, and it felt like they always kicked the can of responsibility just down the alley. Like, it'll get better when it matters. It'll get better when it matters. It didn't. It didn't get better when it mattered. Yeah, a couple wins up in Sacramento, whatever. It didn't get better when it mattered down in L.A. It's time for the regular season to mean something again for the Warriors. Curry can't tolerate it. Steve Kerr can't tolerate it anymore. And Draymond can't be, he can't be a guy who, whether he opts back in for 1 year or opts out and then comes back in on a multiple-year deal, which I think is a very realistic expectation and probably will happen. Draymond can't be the guy who sets the tone of, we're such hot shit that the regular season doesn't matter for us. I don't get up to play the Hawks on a Tuesday night. It's time to do that again. And if everyone's a little bit too old to feel that way, well, then bigger changes need to come and attitude readjustments need to happen. Effort matters. And when the Warriors weren't trying to win, they didn't. And even in cases where they were trying to win, you've never seen a more decorated, successful, victorious franchise make so many personal mistakes. And I'm talking from Curry and the timeout that he lost in the playoffs to all. It's ridiculous. You go back to a handful of regular season games. They're up late and should have closed those out. They didn't. That can't happen when you have this much of a veteran team. No more wasting spots on Andre Iguodala anymore. That's just absolutely ridiculous. He's 39. He played in 8 games this year, and his wisdom translated into one of the dumbest basketball teams of the Steve Kerr era. The Warriors were, Eric Paschal-led Warriors level bad at times. So whatever Andre was around for, whatever wisdom he gave to the team, It didn't mean shit. You know, the old guys don't need a wisdom leader, and the young guys, clearly, it all went in one ear and right out the other. You know, he's been around the block. He's seen so much. He knows so much. I don't care. I don't care. You got enough guys on this team that have been around the block, seen so much, know so much, where you just can't piss away a roster spot. Can't do that anymore. Can't do that anymore. Now, when it comes to, you know, running it back, that's when I said the dynasty's over. This is not just a run it back situation, and there's more than Father Time working against the Warriors. The CBA is officially now working against the Warriors as hard as the rest of the NBA is to try to prevent their further success. John Hollinger wrote a fantastic piece, and I'm not even going to pass this off as it's mine at all. I want to read to you from some of what John Hollinger wrote about the Warriors, and it's really something else. He's like, Father Time absolutely taking its toll, but the CBA is here to finish the job off now. The Warriors spent freely to keep this team together, and especially to augment it once Kevin Durant left. Their willingness to absorb a massive luxury tax bill to turn that money into Andrew Wiggins and eventually get them an additional crown in 2022 was great, but the rules are becoming more draconian just when the Warriors could actually use a little bit more flexibility to kind of keep this thing going. Golden State will only have minimum contracts available to augment the roster unless it slashes and burns what is currently there. And if they don't, if it's Steph, Clay, and Dre and Wiggins all together, it's minimum everywhere. They won't even have a mid-level to give out. Again, back to Hollinger. Golden State will only have minimum contracts available to augment the roster unless it slashes and burns what is currently there. Green has a player option and could become a free agent, although Shams and Anthony Slater report that an extension now seems more likely. Jordan Poole is coming off a series where he was, kind of unplayable and is about to see a salary bump from a great value of $3.9 million to a big liability unless he turns into a different player again of $28.2 million. And, I don't think his $500,000 bonus for winning Defensive Player of the Year is going to kick in anytime soon. Klay Thompson is set to make $43 million next year, despite being, at this point, a pretty average player who was low-key brutal for much of the playoffs. I mean, it's always a basketball team. It's never one player. But if you wanted to really point at one player who has a level of responsibility to be great in big moments and say, well, that's the player that disappointed the Warriors the most, it was Klay Thompson. Klay is set to make $43 million again next year. It's becoming increasingly hard for successful teams to pipeline youth, and the Warriors are learning that part too. They thought they had a workaround to help the second pick that became, what was his name again? What was his name? Oh, James Wiseman. That's right. And then, they got Kuminga, but obviously Kuminga didn't turn into what they hoped. And really right now, the young player that I think you can actually say that guy's going to mean something to the Warriors next year is Moses Moody. Outside of that, whether it's been Bob Myers' picks or Kirk Lacob's picks or whatever, whoever's been the most influential voice in the room, players have not landed in a way that the Warriors needed them to land. One more point from Hollinger. The cap rules will continue to chip away at them. For instance, Dante DiVincenzo is making, he made just $4.5 million this past season. He's surely going to opt out of his $4.7 million deal next year and have offers at a full mid-level exception, which the Warriors' cap position prevents them from matching or even replacing. Again, any player who you're like, oh man, all you need is a mid-level and you can get that guy, you can't get that guy and keep the core that they have right now. So let me tell you, if there was ever a year where, along with trying to rebuild under incredibly difficult circumstances, was absolutely up now for a basketball team, it's this offseason for the Warriors. If you have to compound that with Bob Myers leaving, I mean, you can get as angry as you want about some of Bob's decisions not coming through for the Warriors, but Bob has had more success than he's had failure here. They got banners to prove it. And trying to reinvent a team and a front office on a fly, that's tough. That's tough. I mean, you better be way light years ahead of everyone if you can do all of that in 1 year. So, like I said, normally an autopsy and a proof of death is a lot easier to understand than why life has been generated in the first place. But the Warriors are going to be a very interesting case study, and where and why and how it all went wrong, I don't think still is understood. We'll see how much information about what went wrong in that locker room actually bubbles up to the surface now that we're, in the people might start talking portion of the year. It's going to be fascinating to watch how they continue to have success with this, because success is still available to them. Contention is still available to them. Being favored to win an NBA title, I don't think that's still available to them, and that's through the rest of Steph Curry's career. Maybe they do something spectacular and unexpected, but I don't think anyone's going to be picking them as they're about to be champs again anytime soon. Again, the league is caught up in terms of style and has absolutely now surpassed them in terms of athleticism and certainly depth. Looking around at the NBA's remaining Final Four, there is a stunning note here. The Lakers are the first team in NBA, baseball, football, or hockey history to finish last place outright in their division, yet be among the final 4 teams remaining in the playoffs. That's unbelievable. It speaks to the job that Rob Pelinka did at the trade deadline. He did a spectacular job. He saw a team that wasn't built to do it, and he said, I have to rebuild this thing. The Warriors, they looked at their year not going the way they wanted it to, and they just said, we're going to stick and stay. And obviously that didn't really work. Pardon me. Did you watch Game 7 yesterday? Sixers, Celtics. Doc Rivers might be fired before the end of this YouTube Twitch broadcast, before you're done listening to today's podcast. Doc, dude, he's Game 7 cancer as a head coach. And I'm not saying it's all on him, because he's got 2 guys who are phenomenal stat sheet stuffers, but neither is a leader. I'm talking about Embiid, the MVP of this year, and James Harden, MVP of past years, and neither of those guys, I think, is built to ever be the guy who leads their team to shit. When your entire stat line is buoyed by living at the free throw line, and you're not allowed to live at the free throw line in the postseason unless you're a Los Angeles Laker, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. Doc has now bowed out of 5 straight Game 7s in a row. Philadelphia has now lost in the Eastern Conference semifinals 3 years in a row. Can't blame Ben Simmons on this one. Can he develop a leader? I don't think he can. I think it's time for Doc Rivers to go, and where he resurfaces, because he'll get retreaded somewhere. Who knows? Monty Williams out of Phoenix, and we'll talk about that in a second. How about Eric Spoelstra? Eric Spoelstra is one of the single great coaches this league has ever seen. And I know you probably don't want to hear another segment about Miami Heat culture, but it's true. Miami Heat culture is a thing. Eric Spoelstra, with basically a team full of NBA equivalent of walk-ons, and Jimmy Buckets, who's a killer. Eric Spoelstra and the Miami Heat are in the Eastern Conference Finals for the 7th time in the last 13 years. That's impressive, considering all the teams that were built around them and super teams and trust the process. And here come the Brooklyn Nets and all the, no, Celtics, Raptors, no, Cleveland, after LeBron leaves Miami, all of them, except for this year's Celtics, seem to have just totally faded back into the background. The Miami Heat, they're like ever present. Speaking of ever present, this little cough that I've got, I just can't shake it. I want to talk quickly about the full-on Suns collapse. Out like chumps on their home floor for the second straight year, but this time it comes with the embarrassment of, Kevin Durant is here. In a multiverse timeline, I would have really liked to seen what the Suns would have looked like in the playoffs this year had they not made that Kevin Durant trade. Because you know what? That's Devin Booker's team. And Devin Booker, with the right amount of depth and the right amount of we've done this, we've been through this together, might have broken through in a way that the rebuilt Suns in the image of Kevin Durant did not break through this year. The whole you take a shot, I take a shot style of basketball, it doesn't really work in the postseason unless you're eliminating the Clippers. It didn't work in Brooklyn, and they're kind of like doing that again. The Suns are about to look very different because Chris Paul and DeAndre Ayton are both probably gone at some point this offseason or next year. And at this point in his career, Chris Paul is a solid starter. That's it. That's all he is. And he's a solid starter who you can guarantee to be hurt at the worst possible time. DeAndre Ayton is now very expensive. He's got a 4-year, $133 million deal that he signed last offseason. The only saving grace is that he's averaged a double-double in each of his 5 NBA seasons. He's only 24 years old, but there's just something about a lack of dog in him that I don't like. DeAndre Ayton, Big decisions coming up, and Monty Williams is out. We'll see what their new owner does, who he hires. If he hires Doc, that would be hysterical. I heard Isaiah Thomas has been, basically puppy dogging the new Suns owner around, looking to maybe he's going to be named a head coach. I would go with Nick Nurse or Mike Budenholzer. I mean, that's the door I would be knocking on. One more knock on Ja Morant, and then we will sort of turn our attention to a couple of other places as we wrap up today's version of the Plus before we get into Club Plus. Ja Morant, you're a fucking idiot. You're an idiot. You're just an idiot. And I'm going to tell you right now, there is no one who has let Ja Morant down more in his life than his dad. Ja Morant is a living example of what happens when your dad wants to be your friend more than when your dad wants to be your dad. What is Ja Morant rolling around waving guns on Instagram Live again for? I mean, is he that stupid? The answer is yes. He is that stupid. He did it again. Why? So he can look cool? So he can look gangsta? So he can look like he's tougher than he really is? I'm going to tell you, the only thing Ja Morant has ever shot in his life is a basketball. Quit it. You're a studio gangster, dude. Fucking clown show. So the NBA has to stop pandering to its talented morons, and Adam Silver needs to suspend Ja Morant for the first 10, 20 games of next year. He has to. You just can't let this go unchecked. Well, he's got the right to a gun. Sure he does. He's got the constitutional right to bear arms. But when you do it on Instagram and you're in the NBA, the commissioner of the league has his right to suspend your ass. One has nothing to do. This is not a Second Amendment issue. This is a second violation of boneheaded behavior that has already been dealt with in a very strict manner. No lessons learned. When a child doesn't learn a lesson, you got to go timeout. Ja Morant, amazing talent, total moron. Total moron. It's time for some tough love for that guy. And if his dad's not going to give it to him, Daddy Silver needs to give it to him. Who's the owner of the Memphis Grizzlies? Why don't you step up and exercise a little discipline? Where do we go here? Where do we go here other than it's officially now baseball season, now that the Warriors are done. Got both teams in the Bay Area tonight. Giants, they didn't do very well in Arizona, losing embarrassing fashion, 3 games in a row. Well, 2 games specifically in a row, losing it late. That wasn't good, and now the Giants are a half game away from being tied with the Rockies for dead last place in their own division. So, Farhan's abacus is not doing nearly what it was promised to do. A lot of the decisions that Farhan has made are carrying embarrassingly low batting averages right now or embarrassingly high ERAs. We'll get into all that on another day, though. Because the one thing I want to talk about the A's, who, of course, dropped 3 of 4 to the Texas Rangers, I am absolutely loving. I can't get enough. There's nothing on the internet that I click on faster than a story generated by someone in Las Vegas going, yeah, I don't think we want the A's. I love that. I love the negative press that the A's are getting out of Las Vegas. You would think that whole city would be like, rah, rah, sis, boom, bah. This is our chance to go ahead and get a Major League Baseball team. And the entire city's like, what's it going to cost taxpayers? Double, For 6 years, longer than that, for like the last decade, the A's said it's not just about a stadium, right? They need a whole mega real estate project around their deal in order to be competitive again. Or not, apparently, because there is no mega real estate deal other than a stadium in Las Vegas. So, every single time John Fisher said the only way for us to be competitive again is with if I can build Abu Dhabi around the stadium and Howard Terminal as well, not just a new stadium. And that's what sunk the A's for really staying. Instead of building a baseball stadium, they wanted to build their own little city within a city, which was ridiculous. Apparently that's not needed anymore in Las Vegas. So it was a lie all along, the same way that Mark Davis basically lied about how much tailgating meant to him, and he needed a place for Raiders fans to tailgate. You can't tailgate anywhere outside of Allegiant Stadium. That went from mattering an awful lot in Oakland to not at all as soon as there was a brighter pasture to go to. But it's really incredible. The amount of people in Las Vegas going, yeah, we might be interested in having a baseball team one day, but the A's, nah. It might leave this team with nowhere to go, including back home. So it is a level of my daddy was rich incompetence buoyed by Dave Cavill, who is officially checking the boxes of I can build soccer stadiums, but that's the end of that story. That guy can't do anything else. One of the worst public-facing PR guys on the planet, Dave Cavill. Just awful at his job. And we all know that John Fisher is straight up on fuck John Fisher status and will not move off of that unless he sells, in which case we'll say, thank you very much. Take your money. Now get the fuck out of here because fuck you too. It is nice to be able to swear here on the Plus. I want to end with a little bit of a personal note. And you probably weren't expecting this. Many months ago, I got a colonoscopy. And that colonoscopy revealed my colon is absolutely gorgeous. Knew it. And I'm very thankful that that was the reply. I want to urge every single man watching right now around my age, if you are older than, 45, if you're in your mid-40s, you have to get a colonoscopy. We're not great personal friends, but we're professional friends of the first degree. John Kincaid, who is a sports talk show host that was based in Atlanta for over 20 years and was the king of Atlanta. He's originally from Philadelphia, and when was offered the opportunity to go do a morning show in Philadelphia on 97.5 The Fanatic, he took it. So he went back home. He's a Temple grad. He is a big Phillies, Eagles, Sixers, Flyers fan. He has been diagnosed with colon cancer. And it was detected by a colonoscopy. He wasn't feeling particularly well, which is why he went and got one in the first place. And it came back with, bad news. He's in surgery today. And I want to wish my friend John Kincaid the very, very best. Because I'm going to tell you, whenever I've had a career issue come up, he has been someone who has been a mentor and a friend to me. And when I was laid off, he was among the first to shoot me a text basically going, what the hell's that about? Idiots. Morons. I love John Kincaid. For a man I don't know very well, but I feel like I know very well in another way, I love John Kincaid. And if you are inclined to say a little prayer, say a little prayer. And if you're not the praying type, but you are a man over the age of 45, go get yourself a colonoscopy. It could be something that saves your life. And so that's where we're ending today's version of the Damon Bruce Show that goes up on the podcast. We have much more coming up for you as we haven't even gotten into the chat. I haven't even opened it. I'm about to here. And I'm going to go reverse chat. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom and then scroll backwards to the start of the show. But Club Plus is officially about to begin, which means the Damon Bruce Show is officially about to end. And I want to invite you to stick around all week because at 11 a.m., we're about to start getting into a lot more things other than, oh, woe's the Warriors. We got much of the sports world that we have not been ignoring, but we certainly haven't been highlighting because we've been so deep inside playoff basketball. I'm looking forward to the NBA's Final Four. We're even going to talk a little playoff hockey, I'm sure, before it's said and done, but a big pivot to baseball and the NFL's offseason. And I believe, is it tomorrow the Victor Wembanyama draft actually happens? So big things going on in the NBA draft as well. Ping pong balls are popping this week. So always fun to do that. Thank you so much for tuning in. And please do remember that sports don't build character, they reveal it. And like that, he's gone. Except he's not. You like the remix? Yeah. Where's my black inside? Hold on. I got my 2x4. My whiskey 2x4. Yeah. By the way, cracking into the cask, the blackened cask conditioned over the weekend. Woo! It is so good. It is, it doesn't blow you out of the water with this high octane level of, it's so much alcohol that it's like, it's just the most caramelly whiskey barrel tasting delicious couple sips of whiskey. That's not cocktail whiskey. That's sipping whiskey right there, that cask condition. Go ahead and use just the normal blackened for your whiskey cocktails. Use the rye in your Manhattans, if you will. But that cask, that is sipping whiskey of the first degree. And we were sipping a little of that on Mother's Day. Oh, it was so good. A little sip of coffee, and let's see what the good people of the Plus are all chatting about today. What do we got here? Otis Bird III. So we already missed the first 20 minutes of any and all chatting. That's how many. Dude, I'm going to tell you right now. It's incredible, this chat community that we've got going on here. Otis Bird III, your leader. But it's incredible how much of a conversation is being had in the chat room. You would think that this was a whole radio station. It ain't. It's just us, our own little channel over here, but this thing is bigger now than I can think of a couple radio stations might be. I can't wait to see what this looks like in a year from now when we've actually done so well. We hire producers and things that go on other than, just Mrs. Plus trying to run it all. This thing's going to grow. There's just no doubt about it. Thank you, Otis. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, neat with a little bit of water. That's the way to do a really good whiskey. Irwin, you are right about that. A little splash of water makes that whiskey start to breathe. I'm not talking whiskey and water, like 2 parts, 1 part. I'm talking just like an eyedropper, just a drop or two of water. You can go straight up neat. One Rocks does the same thing. You know what I'm talking about. You know what you're talking about, Daniel. Yeah, you know how to handle a sign, D. Bruce. That's right, baby. That's right. What do we have here from Sporticus? Colonoscopies are inconvenient, but the alternative can be far more inconvenient. Indeed, and here's the deal. The whole colonoscopy thing, let's be honest. The biggest reason why people, men, and this goes for women too, a lot of people don't like things stuck up their ass. Well, some do. But for the most part, I think most of the world checks that as a, that's a one-way doorway, exit only. And I think that is what a lot of people are hesitant about. I'm going to tell you right now, the worst part of the colonoscopy is when you got to drink that barium or whatever that cleans you out like you would not believe. By the time you get wheeled into the room for the actual colonoscopy, you are out. Like they put you out fully under, and you don't feel a thing. You don't know a thing. I didn't even know anyone was around my butthole until they wheeled me out and told me, like, what a butthole you got. So you don't even know it happens, other than the day before when you can't be more than about 15 paces away from a toilet. Look, get it done, men, women, especially men, though. Especially men. Get that done. It is your responsibility, especially if you're a husband, if you're a father. Look, single guys need to take care of themselves too, but your life is no longer your life alone when you become a husband, a father. You can't just be selfish about what you're doing and not doing. So this is all important stuff. By the way, very warm down in San Jose. I'm getting all sorts of. It's warm down in San Jose today. All right, well, that's good. Another little cautionary tale here from Mitch. My best friend was diagnosed with colon cancer that was discovered with a routine colonoscopy. It was caught early enough to where he was able to beat it. Ding, 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 ding. That's the magic. That's the magic. Again, you're not doing these things because you love it. You're doing these things because it's the responsible thing to do. And you are right here, Rockin' New Era 84. Fuck cancer and fuck John Fisher. Indeed. Indeed. Uncle Boy's giving a little love. Thank you very much, Uncle Boys. Uncle Boys wants to sponsor the show, too. We might have the official cheeseburger of the Damon Bruce Show coming up soon. We're looking forward to that. Again, dentists are interested. Derek Wong, and we're going to be talking soon. There's a lot going on, though. An awful lot going on. True Blue forever. And we got to be able to joke about things. As intrusive as a colonoscopy is, it's still way better than the treatment we've gotten from John Fisher. Indeed. Indeed. And indeed. Heal up fast, Mr. Kincaid. John Kincaid. I used to have him on the show talking about the Eagles, talking about anytime there was a story out of Philly or Atlanta when he was down in Atlanta, John Kincaid was my go-to everything. And great guy. Great guy. And if you want to talk about examinations, women, absolutely. Check your my mother is a breast cancer survivor. Mammograms for everyone. Indeed. Let's see here. Lots going on. Damon, what's up with a lot of swearing? It's done appropriately. I think it apply. We're not going to overswear. It's going to specifically apply to John Fisher. But, it's really nice to not have to play by anyone's rules, the FCC rules, a radio station's rules anymore. If there's one thing I do know, it's that language is something that people, I think, appreciate when it's more authentic than it is. You know what always offended me? Like when the F word appears in print and they write F-U ampersand K. Like we all know what that is, so just say it. If you're going to use the word, use the word. What do we got? What's going on in the Plus? What's going on in the club? What do we got here? This is from the regular Ryan. Remote work is on the rise. A's can be a remote team and just play anywhere since nobody even wants them. Wouldn't that be something else? I mean, why not look at the minor league stadium in Stockton? Go play there and just broadcast your things on. How about this? They're going to probably have to go out and broadcast on their own no matter where they are because no one really watches and no one really listens. I mean, I saw an attendance figure. Maury Brown, who writes for Forbes and is a former BBWA guy, he's talking about how baseball attendance is up over 1.1 million combined this year over last year's average, up nearly 1,800 fans a game. And that is with a team that is self-emulating. Emulating? When the monk lights themselves on fire in the middle of the street. That's what John Fisher's decided to do with his franchise. And I wrote back, that's unbelievable considering you have one strategically trying to not sell tickets. And he wrote back saying, if you can believe it, the A's are actually have drawn 36,380 year over year, which is still horrific. They're only averaging 9.4 thousand fans per game, 9,450 per game. That's the second lowest since the Marlins are at about 12,000 per game. Again, what did their new stadium do for them? But there is no more false number than saying that the A's are drawing 9,000 fans per game. I have seen way too many pictures. I've talked to way too many people who have gone and said there aren't 800 people here tonight. So like everything that the A's crank out, it's totally false, and you can't believe it, and it's just a lie. It's all a lie. Speaking of colonoscopies, Mitch, thank you, Mitch. John Fisher can eat my entire Damon, you should have Cy on. So Cyrus and I disagree severely about his evaluation of Steve Kerr, and we did so on Kruger's channel after Game 7, after I wrapped up my post-game show. I hopped on with Larry, and Cy and I were yelling at each other. Let me tell you, the reason why I'm comfortable yelling at Cyrus is because I love that guy. We're good friends, and I think that he is comically inaccurate about Steve Kerr's responsibility to a level of failure that this team enjoyed this year. But, I will get him on. We will talk about it. The next time we got some actual Warriors news to discuss, let's absolutely have Cyrus on to talk about it. I love Cyrus. It's my guy. I want to thank so many of you for tuning in. A lot of good stuff today. A lot of good stuff. Again, I got to start looking at the chat room a little bit earlier than I do because unlike, I guess some platforms allow you to go back and just look through the entirety of the chat, mine cuts off at about 300, 400 messages. And we got people like chatting in the chat room, like 6, 7, 8, 900 chats. I mean, just little thought bubbles that pop up. I mean, it's incredible the conversation that you guys are having, you gals are having over here. And by the way, look at that. Let's get it, brother. Uncle boys, they want in. They want that family. Look, here's the thing. My message about colonoscopies is hardly unique. I'm not going to save a lot of lives, but if we can encourage one person who may not have done that in the first place, that's all we're looking to do. You need to know how your colon is looking, and may it be spectacular. Again, I've been told my lower colon is just freaking gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Thank you very much, Yossarian. Throwing a little jingle jangle in there. Did Gianna club it up on Friday? She did. If you want to go ahead and check out all the fun that Gianna and I had, go back to last Friday's show, not the post-game show, but the normal show that we do at 11 o'clock. Gianna rolled the whole thing with us. Jillian came on in. We're all drinking whiskey together, hanging out, eating Ike sandwiches. It was a great time. It was a great time. Mr. Bridge. Self-immolation sensation. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Yeah, that's what the A's are. That's what the A's are. Fish and chips. The chat is on fire. Dude, the chat is amazing. Again, we need to have like a producer going through all of this because, Jillian's got other things to do. How about here? If we open up a membership, True Blue, let's get the pics of Damon's colon up on the membership level. We're going to figure out what to do with the membership level at some point. I can promise you we'll do a little bit better for you than that. I can promise you. I can promise you we're going to get into a whole bunch of stuff coming up all week long. We got a lot of things to talk about other than just woes the Warriors, but what a fascinating offseason they're about to have. What an awesome, awesome time it was here with you today. Thank you so much for stopping on by Club Plus before you go to any other sports talk show, or maybe you're abandoning stations to come over here, and that means you're making the right choice. Thank you for making that choice. Thank you for making it with us. Thank you for making it with me. It means the absolute world. By the way, smash that button, subscribe if you haven't. I thank you so very much for tuning in, and I want you to know that it meant so much to me today that you showed up. And you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Club Plus is now closed. We'll be back open tomorrow. Thank you very much.